Hello and welcome to Lab 6. Today we'll be looking at setting up a switch in detail. We'll also be setting up a gateway and a couple of end devices. So let's go ahead and take a look at the topology and let's set up the devices. So let's go ahead and we just need a basic gateway, so we'll stick this on the side. We'll go into the switches. If you take a look at the topology, once again we need a switch with a gigabit link, at least a couple of them. So we will add the 2950T. If you put the mouse above it, you can notice at the bottom we have at least a couple gigabit links, so this will suffice. In addition, we need a couple end devices, almost just like the last lab. So I'll go ahead and set these up. You should know how to set these up by now in detail, so I'll just kind of speed past it to save time. This machine once again needs at least 1 gigabit NIC, so we just change that out. Now that we have all the components laid out, let's go ahead and connect it as the topology wants. Okie doke, once we have that all set up, let's take a look at what we need to do. Once again, I'll be using a slightly modified IP scheme. And it looks like one of the initial tasks, we need to set up the IPs to all of the devices. So to this one at least. This is what we picked up on how to set up last time, so let's just go ahead and speed past this. We don't want to do the basic setup, and we will just set up the name and assign the IPs. So we need to enable conft host name. Looks like the lab wants us to call it this time. Now let's go ahead and assign the IP. Looks like that's all we need to do on this. At least this is active now. Let's go ahead and we'll exit all the way back to the beginning. Once we've set that one up, we need to set up the IP on this guy. Once we've done that, now we'll go ahead and dive on into setting up the switch. The switch is kind of identical to setting up the gateway like we did in the last lab. You'll notice that some of the commands it's slightly modified, these little subtleties that you'll have to change, but essentially the same thing applies. When you boot up the switch, it has a lot of the good info, the Cisco IOS, gives you a lot of physical specifications, statuses, legalities, and we'll just keep going all the way down. You'll notice as we plug things into the switch and we have the lights going on, we have connectivity. So the switch likes to give you status messages to indicate such. So we'll just get out of all these. It's in exec mode at the moment, so it looks like one of the initial tasks. We need to go ahead and get into privileged mode, so we'll go ahead and enable to go up into privileged exec mode. And the good old question symbol, we'll talk about that. Anytime you talk about the question symbol at the command line, it gives you all of the available commands that you can use. You can space down to continue on down the list. And if we type in show flash, that's something else. This just shows us the flash module and the iOS image that's on it at the moment. And it shows you a little bit of the space statistics of how much it has left. Go ahead and go back. Anytime we want to see the uptime, this is the command that we use. It'll show us a lot about the Cisco iOS info that's on this machine. It will show you switch uptime and a lot of good details as well, so that's a good command. And anytime you want to look at the past commands, we will type in this command. We haven't typed in a whole lot of commands, but the two that we have typed in, it'll show you them. And then as you know, you can cycle between commands by hitting the up key, up and down. And we want to take a look at the config file, so show. Actually, we can't do it in exec mode. We need to go into privileged mode. So we will send away this command. This will show us the config file that's actively being used now that the switch is on. But as you know, if you unplugged it and you made changes and you did not save them, the changes would be lost because this is the file that it looks at when the switch boots up. So these two files may not exactly be the same unless you saved them and you copied them. So this one, since we have not saved one, it does not exist. So as an example, we could copy the active config to the boot up config. We want to keep the same name. We don't want to change that. Now we can show. Let's go back. Actually, let's go up. And now that one actually exists, it'll come up. Sometimes you may need to look at those files if you don't know exactly what commands you've typed in or someone else has typed in. That's a good way to check out how the switch was set up. Go ahead and go back a mode. So anytime you want to pull up these specific details about a specific link on the switch, you can use this command. And let's say we want to type in 1. Oops, that's not going to like that. It's going to want the full thing, like O/1. This will show you all the details. A lot of the stuff you won't use in this class, but it's good to know. This way when you move on to the next one, if you take it, you'll know exactly how to see the details on a specific link on a switch. Same thing applies to a gateway. Let's see. Looks like we need to change the host name on this one as well, so let's go into privileged mode and let's go into config mode, and we will do host name switch A. As you can tell, this was the old host name. Now we've changed it. Now it's switch A. And we also want to set an enable passcode. So on the, yes, on the enable. So let's go enable. And if we go back a couple of levels, go enable. Now it wants a passcode. Always keep it that same passcode that we typed in. If not, we can't check into the lab when you submit them. And looks like we want a passcode on the console as well. We'll go ahead and exit. Looks like we want them on the telnet lines as well, so line VTY. We'll just open up a few of these telnet lines. We don't want them all open. This is the same things that we did in the last lab. Typically on any switch you want to set up, you always want to knock these out of the way. And eventually, once you've done this enough times, you can do it while you sleep. The next thing that we'll go ahead and take a look at is how to get into the config mode for a specific interface. So for example, we can go into config T. We'll go into interface fast O/1. So let's say we wanted to modify some specific details just to this only interface. So we'll type in this command. Just like on the gateway, it goes into config IF, which is config interface, but only this one that we mandated. And let's imagine that we want to change the speed. And let's say we want to mandate the speed. So instead of just going at 10 megabits, it'll go at 100 megabits. So speed. And let's say we always want it to have full duplex. So duplex full. And then we'll go ahead and want to go ahead and do a no shut on this. Next thing that we'll take a look at, looks like we want to accomplish the same thing on all of them. So let's check to see how many of these we have. We have O/1 all the way to O/24, so let's apply it to all those. We'll go ahead and exit. Let me go ahead and test out this command. Did not like that. Believe it has to have a hyphen. Does not like that. Let's see what it is. Anytime we don't know, the best thing to do is just to use the question symbol. It looks like it wants O. Wants a slash. We want O/1. It looks like it wants a dot. Let me go ahead and take a quick look at the command guide. Okay, so it looks like we have to put a space. Sometimes it's the little subtle things. So, as you can tell, when I was doing it, I would do O/1 and then I would put a question. Since I don't have a space, it wants a dot, like a sub interface. We haven't gotten into those, but you know what that is eventually. But as soon as we put a space and then a question, now it gives us additional options. So sometimes you have to play with it a little bit. So O/1 and then we'll do a hyphen. And let's see. We'll do hyphen O/24. Nope. Go out to do the whole thing. And now it likes it. So now any of these commands that we type in, it will apply to all of these. So we want speed, and we want duplex full. Do no shutdown. Now it looks like we want to shut down a specific one, so we will exit out. We will go into interface FA O/5. We will shut down. And anytime you specifically shut something down, you'll notice how it says this. It's administratively down because as the admin, we shut it down. Now that doesn't so much impact us in this lab, but at least you know how to do it. Next thing we want to do is assign an IP to the management VLAN. We haven't gotten into VLAN so much, but we'll show you how to set the IP on it. So we will exit, interface, VLAN 1. Go ahead and do IP. Go ahead and now we want to set a default gateway. So IP default gateway. We want the default gateway to be the only gateway that we have. So the IP that we assigned to that one was .1. Let's see, .1.1. This way, if any packets come in and this switch simply cannot find out who it's supposed to go to, it will send it to this gateway, which has the capability of routing packets, and it could decide, if we had multiple LANs off to the side, which one to send it to. And we'll move on. We'll show you how to take a look at the VLANs. We'll do show. We may have to go back to exec mode. To VLAN 1. Well, this will show all the details about the VLAN 1, which isn't exactly a physical link, but it is a virtual LAN, which we'll get into in subsequent labs. Now on VLAN 1, we do not need to do the no shut command to enable it. It's automatically enabled. It's the default LAN, as you could say. It's the only one that comes with the switch. So let's go ahead and test some connectivity. Pull this guy up. And it does not like it. So we have something going on. We have some downlinks, so let's find out why. Let's show. All those look good. Go ahead and take a look at these. We'll add some default gateways. Take a step back and let's go back into conft. So it looks like the duplex full command took down connectivity. And I bet you if we do this the opposite way, we'll do duplex full, all those lines immediately go down. Let's do it again. This time we'll negate that. We'll go no duplex full, and all the links go back up. So we'll have to take a look as to why that happened. Maybe it's the way that we have some of the equipment set up, but at least you guys know how to use the command and negate it as well. So let's ping the gateway, and let's see if we can communicate with it. Oh, looks like it took a little bit. Switch took a while to catch up. That's why you always want to do the ping commands at least a couple of times. Sometimes when you change a lot of the switch settings, it may take a while until it fully populates. And now that we do the ping command again from this machine to the switch to the gateway and back, we have full communication, no packet loss, so that's a good sign. We'll do the same thing on this one. We will ping 192.168.1.1. Looks like that one's good as well. And then we'll show you guys how to telnet. Lab doesn't call to do it, but it's a good idea. This way you can see how the line VTY passcodes will affect you. So let's say you wanted to manage this switch. We'll even say the gateway. We want to manage the gateway without having to physically go to it. So we'll also do it with the switch as well. We'll do 192.168.1.10 because that's the IP that we assign to it. Oh, does not like it. So we'll go ahead and skip that in the time being. And one of the last things that we need to do is how to show all the Macs in the Mac table. Let's go back into the switch. We'll have to go back into exec mode. We'll show the MAC address table. And eventually, as things communicate and the switch will pick up what Mac is communicating with it, this table will populate. So as an example, we only have two because we've only tested this device and this device. Let's test out this one and you'll see that we'll get an additional MAC. So let's do ping 192.168.1.1, the gateway. Once it's successful, you'll notice that to get to the gateway, it had to go past the switch. So the switch should have picked up its MAC in the table. And it did. So this link is the FA02. And so that's the new MAC that it picked up. As you can tell in the last table, when we hadn't done the ping connectivity, FA02 is missing out of this list because it did not know the MAC. Now it knows it. And the last thing we'll take a look at is show VLAN. These will show all the existing VLANs on the switch. You can think of a VLAN as, almost a switch within a switch. You can actually break these switches up into grouped switches without having to buy a whole bunch of physical hosts. So the only one that comes by default is VLAN 1. All of the links on the switch get placed in VLAN 1 because, that's the only switch we have in existence at the moment. And let's see. If we go back, also wanted to touch up on the MAC table. At the moment, it is a dynamic MAC that was assigned. Sometimes you'll show this as static. And that seems to be about it. Now you know how to set up a Cisco switch. It's a little bit out of sequence from what the lab shows, but at least we touched up on a lot of the commands that you need to know. And you can somewhat follow along and accomplish the lab as well. Have fun. Oh, and one last thing once again. I did not save. So let's go ahead and save this. And it's so easy to, kind of get into these labs and not save. So you'll always want to save at the beginning, and then each 5 to 10 minutes if you can, because the last thing you want is to lose all these labs, and you have to do them again. So we'll go ahead and we saved it, we'll close it, we'll save it again, and that does it.